Right on time. Excited to speak with you again. And first, can I ask you about the anniversary reissue that you have?
Well, isn't this crazy? After 40 years has gone by, I still feel like it's yesterday we cut that album. And what a good time that was. So a record company decided to release a re-release, redone, remixed, remastered on red vinyl. Thick, delicious red vinyl. It's supposed to be amazing. My guitar player, Paul, who's an audiophile and has a really great record player. I've got the one you bought from Walmart, so I don't even want to put it on that one. But he says it sounds like fantastic. He's impressed because he's kind of a producer, audiophile guy.
Yeah, he's known to be an audiophile and just like you, a solo artist outside of Loverboy. But how long was it from deciding to do this reissue to having it out? Was it years in the making?
I know that the record company, as any good business, wants to kind of capitalize on something like an anniversary, which is cool, and I think it's great. I've seen a lot of people have bought it already, and they're telling us how great it is, and they're excited, and that's the main thing. If you're excited about something, bravo. And it took us, I guess, they probably started talking to us about it a year ago, and it wasn't that big of a deal. We remastered it, which makes it sound a bit better for current times. And with all the new stereos out, it's probably going to sound amazing.
I would have to imagine these days that the major record companies, like the ones that Loverboy has worked with, which I believe was Sony the whole time?
Yeah, well, it started out being Columbia.
Columbia and Epic became Sony, yeah.
Yeah, I remember the days when we were up in the office talking about what to do next with the presidents of Columbia and getting some fantastic awards. We received this really cool award for selling over 5 million copies outside of our own country, and the country being Canada. So that's a pretty good deal. They had a big party for us in the Chrysler Tower, and it was almost surreal. Can you imagine?
Yeah, so I would have to imagine that a company like that just has people on staff who do nothing but calendar birthdays and anniversaries, so that somebody from the Sony Legacy department rings up somebody from your management and goes, hey, 40 years, let's get a reissue out.
That's probably the way it happened. And we've always had a great relationship with Columbia, who's now Sony, and Legacy, which is an offshoot, just something that handles with stuff that's a little older than brand new. And we've always had a great relationship with them, releasing things, re-releasing things. Lately, when we cut a new song, we've been putting it on our website just because we're just paying back. It's kind of here you go, Loverboy fans, a couple of free songs for you. Enjoy them. We'd even do lyric videos for them. Just something to do. Especially now, this last year has been crazy. It's been crazy. We haven't been able to tour since last February 29th, which was a leap year, Darren.
Yes.
So it was one of those, we celebrated that night in Las Vegas, and that turned out to be our last show for a while. Wow, huh? Almost a year's gone by.
Almost a year's gone by, but, Loverboy is not just a legacy band. And I say that because you yourself had a solo record a couple of years ago. I love the title. Do you say Renovation for the pun?
No, I don't. I say Renovation.
Okay.
But I'm surprised you even got that, because it really wasn't a released album. This was an album I did that just basically got canned. We didn't. The record company decided they wanted another Loverboy record, so I just put it away. And I think I made a few copies. I possibly, on my website or something, which I used to run pretty aggressively back then, and that was in the 90s. So, that's like 30 years ago, right? It's hard to believe when I talk like that, because we tour all year long. So every year I just go, wow, that was fun. And then I realized that we started like 41 years ago, writing songs and starting to cut a record. I still can't believe it.
I do have a few questions about that hopefully you haven't been asked before. But before I get there, you also did have the Unfinished Business album in 2014, which was a really clever title. And you talked about putting out new music through your website, just doing it that way with lyric videos. Do you ever see Loverboy doing another studio album?
I'd like to. You know what I'd really like to do, and Paul knows this. I think that all the guys know this. I'd like to take the band in the studio together on the floor like we used to. Everybody tunes up, gets the sound, the microphones get set up, the engineer's sitting there, the thumb goes up, the sticks crack off a count of 4, and boom, we whip into some new songs together as a unit. That's the way I like to record, and that's what I would like to do again. And I think there's a good chance we can do that. We might have to wait a little while for things to settle down, but that's what I would like to do. New songs, all the guys, face to face, sticks in hand, microphone in hand, guitar in hand, and just kick it. That's what I'd really like to do. And I can see it happening, for sure.
Unfinished Business, if I did my research correctly, some of the songs from that, if not all of them, were from the past. They were leftovers that you kind of refined in a great way. Are there a lot of songs from the past that are in the archives besides what you might write in the future?
Well, you know what we have? I got to explain to you. When you go in the studio, for every one of our albums, we went in the studio and we went in with 18 or 20 songs. And in the very beginning, we cut as many songs, as we had time for. We were under a time frame thing, and we were also under a budget thing. So we crammed as many songs as we could onto those 2-inch tapes. And then when it came time, and back when we were doing records, you had to put X amount of music and no more. Just like, I think 17 minutes aside or something. And that was the limit. I'm not quite sure of what exactly it is, but you get my drift. And so we would cut 20 songs, and then it would get scaled down to 9. So there'd be like 13 songs left over, or whatever. And we would be like going, those are great songs. And so we just put them to bed and went on with our lives. And we did a tour, and then we cut another record. And we looked back at some of the songs, but we'd written some new songs. So we just kept moving forward. But when you get, after a certain amount of years goes by, you start to look at some of the things you've done that nobody heard. And we thought it would be a cool idea for the fans to hear some things that never got released that we thought were pretty damn good.
Yeah, one of those songs, Fire Me Up, has a real AC/DC influence to my ears. I think that one could have been a hit.
Thank you. What's well, here's the crazy thing about what's happening in the real world right now. We could, and I almost hate saying it, but we could actually cut the best album we ever did in our life, or create the best song we've ever written in our whole lives. Let's say the Hotel California song of Loverboy. You know what I mean by saying Hotel California was like the ultimate song, right? We could write that right now, but there's no place to play it. The radio stations don't play it, and if the radio stations don't play it, and the reason being, they won't play classic rock until it's 25 years old, and the new stations won't play old guys. So you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. So it's really not, people don't go, hey, let's do an album, because really it's not going to go anywhere. So what we've been doing, instead of doing an album, is we've been cutting songs here and there and throwing them on the website as a way of saying thank you. And, they're going to get it anyway, so why not just give it to them?
Yeah, fair attitude like always. And when I said that I was going to hopefully ask things that hadn't been asked before, that might have been a tall order. But I have a theory about you and Loverboy, that without you guys, hard rock would not have happened the way that it did. And the two examples that I give for that is, without you, I don't think Bob Rock would have become what Bob Rock became ultimately. But also, I believe Loverboy had a cut written by Bryan Adams before Kiss, before any other major band. Do I have that correct, that you guys were the first artist to use a Bryan Adams co-write?
Yeah, probably. Bryan Adams, you got to remember, back in Vancouver, Bryan Adams was a guy we'd see in the office all the time. He was younger than us. He hadn't quite come out yet, and he was pushing real hard, and he was writing a lot of songs. And when we were cutting an album, we wanted to finish it off with this one cut that he and Jim Vallis wrote, and we kind of loverboyized it.
Yeah.
If that's a word. Have I just created a new word, Darren?
Trademark it. Buy the domain right now before I do. Loverboyeyes.com.
Yeah. So I we would give it, a Loverboy touch, change a few things around. I think we added a B section, which is like a bridge, and Bravo, we had a song and it was cool and it was high energy and it really kind of rounded the album off. And we might have been one of the first. I remember Bryan was writing a lot of songs, and a lot of his songs were going to other people, like 38 Special and Kiss and whoever. I mean, he's a writing machine, and even to this day, I'm amazed at some of the things he does.
But yours came out first, the song Jump, before War Machine by Kiss.
Probably. I think it came out before Van Halen, too.
That probably is correct, because that was the album 1984 came out in 83, and the albums we're talking about came out before then. So, wow. But going back to Bob Rock, because you worked with him before he became the in vogue metal, hard rock kind of producer, I always felt that Loverboy was heavier than people kind of realized. Is that something
actually,
that you
if it
think
was
about?
up to Paul Dean, it would have been even heavier than that, because Paul Dean was really trying to get the band to cut heavier records. I kind of didn't want to go too heavy. I said, why create a high-energy pop rock band with positive lyrics and high-energy music and then heavy it up? I just didn't get it. It was Paul Dean's dream to, get it crunchy. And that's kind of where stuff like, the song you mentioned earlier.
Fire Me Up.
Yeah, You Fire Me Up. That was kind of leaning towards the getting a little heavier thing. But, when Bob Rock started, he was in a band. And to make some money, he was an engineer, and he was a very good engineer. He developed a lot of good chops in the studio. And Bob Rock went on to become one of the highest paid producers in the business. He's done a lot of amazing work. And also Mike Fraser, who used to be he was our second engineer.
Yeah.
And second engineers, they're the guys that put the tapes on and make sure the microphones are set up and they get the chords all arranged. They work with the engineer to do all the things the engineer hasn't got time to do. And now he's producing and recording AC/DC albums. So the whole bunch of us kind of rode the ladder right to the top, and it was kind of neat to watch.
Was the band that Bob Rock had the band Rockhead, or is there another band I don't know about?
The Payolas.
The Payolas. Okay, I have to look into that one.
If you want to hear a really great song, I think the Payolas' number one song, which I think is a huge hit worldwide, is called Eyes of a Stranger.
Wow. Well, going back to the Canadian thing, and you were one of the bands that actually had all the success in the States. Bryan Adams, of course, is on that list. But if we talk about Trooper or Tim Feehan, a lot of those things were just 20 times platinum in Canada. How was it that you broke into the States? Did you have a Canadian manager that had just a strong relationship with the American arms of the record company?
You know what happened right off the beginning? Our manager had managed BTO for all those years. BTO were taking a bit of a break, and he was looking for another band because he was, in peak form as a manager. And he had opened up a lot of doors with the touring. BTO toured all over the world.
Yeah.
So he had promoters on his hot list. He could dial them up and say, listen, I got a great band. So he basically phoned his buddy Don Fox down in New Orleans and said, listen, I got a band and I'd really like to take them on tour. And he goes, Bruce, I can't do it. One of those kind of things. And he goes, come on, do me the favor. And so they put us on tour with Kansas. So immediately, Loverboy had sold all his records in Canada. America didn't really have a clue until we started touring. And all the radio stations were calling to try to find this album. And it was one of those kind of vibes that really got it kicking. And so the record company was forced to go, well, let me look into this. And then they found a record, started making it in the States. It was kind of one of those kind of things. It probably wouldn't have happened had we not been on tour, because the people in the audience were going, wow. And they'd never heard us before. Mm-hmm. So that was really kind of fun. We were kind of breaking new ground with that one.
the band that you mentioned, BTO, if you ask the average American about BTO if they were a big classic rock fan and all, they would probably just know 2 or 3 songs. Yet in Canada, it seems to me like BTO and the Guess Who are like on Mount Rushmore if you were going to say the top 5 Canadian bands ever.
Well, I got to tell you, if you were a BTO fan, you'd know that a BTO started out basically as the Guess Who. And if you don't know who the Guess Who, back in '65, they started with a song called Shakin' All Over.
Mm-hmm.
And they came out with These Eyes, No Sugar Tonight, American Woman,
Yeah.
Clap for the Wolfman, Bus Rider, Share the Land, Laughing, She's Come Undone. I mean, give me a break. Those are like all super huge hits. Then Randy Bachman, when he finished with the Guess Who, started BTO. Like, how many people have 2 shots at it, right?
Right, not a lot of people. And going back to you, you've kindly shared the acclaim in this interview with other greats. But one thing that I like to know about bands that have sold tens of millions of albums is, are the Loverboy hits in the US and Canada the same as the hits that they were in Europe? Or are there songs that made it in different countries that didn't quite make it in North America?
Well, the basic top hits for Loverboy were pretty huge everywhere. I'll give you an example. In Australia, Turn Me Loose off the first album, and the first album went gold, and the single went platinum. So Turn Me Loose was a platinum selling single in Australia. So, and in Japan, that was big. New Zealand, Europe, pretty good. I mean, we've done some shows in Europe where we get a lot of fans come out, but nothing like America and Canada. That's really where it's happening.
Yeah, that's always intrigued me about which bands made it over to Australia and Japan and then which ones didn't. And it often seems like that was a management not talking to the record company, or because they were always busy in the US and Canada, they didn't have the time to go over to the other hemisphere. Like, from what I understand, Tom Petty wasn't big in Japan. He's not a household name by any stretch of the imagination, but Quiet Riot was bigger.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Actually, you know what it was with Japan is they really liked things that had the like, they liked Kiss and Quiet Riot and heavy stuff. They really liked. They thought it was a big Americana thing, and in Japan at the time they wanted to enjoy the Americana experience, or the North American experience. We ended up going to Japan and touring, but we didn't do great in Japan like Cheap Trick or groups like you mentioned. And then I remember we toured through Europe and we did TV shows in these big stadiums, and they'd have 2 stages. On one stage would be Loverboy, and the other stage, as soon as Loverboy finished, Chicago would start. As soon as Chicago finished, Tom Petty would start. And we did shows like this all the time, and they were televised. So it was a relationship that was working. We never had time to go to Australia. We kept doing tours and albums in North America, and we never went to Mexico either until a few years ago. We went down and had a fantastic experience.
Interesting. Away from music, I know you've been a sports car guy for decades now. Are you still active in Project 604, or did COVID kind of shut that down?
Well, you can't get together and do big meets. The 604 does lots of stuff at the racetrack. And I'm big into the sports cars. I'm kind of a Porsche nut is what I am. I'm a bit of a collector. I always have been. I've been collecting for years. But I love the cars. I love engines. I love the smell of it. I love the feel of it. I love the people. And 604 is a fantastic outlet for it. But they asked not to get together. People are supposed to stay close to home, and this is what's happening, I think, worldwide. So, COVID kind of stepped on a lot of things.
Yeah. What have you been doing to pass your time if you haven't been on tour, you're not doing the 604 thing? A lot of archiving kind of projects?
You know what? I've been a little lazy in the music department. I'm working on a song right now with Paul, and I'm going to be singing it in the next few days. But I've been doing other things, just kind of trying to be a little bit appreciative of what I've done. And I'm trying not to work myself to death during this break.
Did it start off productive and then it tailed off for you, or has it just been a year of slowing down?
This year it's been kind of, you know what it is when you win the races and you sit back and go, geez, I just won that race. I feel like Loverboy's really won the race overall. We've had a very successful 40 years, and we still play.
Yeah.
We had to postpone or cancel somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 shows this year, or last year rather. And this year, as time goes on, shows are getting postponed or canceled because they're asking people not to get together. You got to imagine how many people are going to want to get together in a place that holds 5,000 people if half of them are sick or could get sick, or you could get sick, or the band could get sick. We haven't been vaccinated, a lot of us, until it's time. They'll call us when it's time. But until we get vaccinated and know that most of the world's vaccinated, there might not be a concert. So we're kind of thinking, well, I don't know what's happening next. We really don't know what's happening.
Well, to your credit about winning the race, one of your famous quotes, I think it was from a VH1, Where Are They Now, or something kind of special, was you said that Kurt Cobain killed your career. And, it was just like a quip. And I've heard other people like David Lee Roth say that. But I never looked at Loverboys having a slow career or anything like that, because it seemed to me like you were one of the first bands to really grasp classic rock and that you could be earning an excellent living doing fairs and festivals.
Well, this is true. What's funny is when you do an interview, especially on television, and they kind of throw the mic in front of you and go, oh, what's going on? And how do you feel about this, that, the next thing? And I think the quote was actually, Nirvana killed our career. I think I said Nirvana. But, Kurt Cobain was the main guy for Nirvana. So what was happening, and I don't know if people really know this or not, but when the grunge music came out of Seattle, record companies and radio stations were so affected by it that they stopped playing REO Speedwagon, Styx, Cheap Trick. You know what I mean? They just stopped playing them. And these are all the groups we tour with and have toured with all our lives. So what happened is it happened to all of us at the same time. So the radio stations stopped playing. It wasn't until classic rock radio was created out of this that groups like Styx and REO Speedwagon, Kansas, and Loverboy, ZZ Top, all the bands started coming back because their whole format was we'll play everything 25 years and older.
Yeah.
And that was their format. So out of this whole Nirvana killed everything, grunge was so popular that record companies didn't want records from these bands. They didn't, and radio wasn't playing us anymore. So we really had to kind of stop and think about it. Pardon me, I think I took a year off. We did as a band, just to think about that. And then we realized, I think it might be time to get back out there and do what we do, because we didn't want to sit around and do nothing all the time. So,
yeah, I'm a big fan of a lot of the bands that you just mentioned. And unfortunately, some of them chase trends. The Kiss Grunge album is not a great look. So it's maybe a good thing that Loverboy didn't chase that trend.
Yeah, well, I agree. It's it's kind of what we did, and we're happy for what we did. We had we had fans, and we had places to go and concerts to do. I'm still sad that we had to cancel so many concerts last year, because I everybody's talking about it. All our fans are just going, "What's going on?"
Well, two quick questions, and then you're a free man, Mike. And the first one is, do you have a television recommendation that you can give? And it's okay if it's just on in Canada, or you think it is, because we do get Letterkenny here in the States.
Letterkenny. That is some stuff. You know what I've watched? I watched my first Letterkenny 2 nights ago, and I couldn't believe it. If that's what America thinks Canada is all about, I guess you know what it really is. It's kind of what Eastern Canada is all about. If you have your tongue firmly planted in your cheek, it's a tongue in cheek for sure. And it's I don't know if you've noticed this, but Eastern Canada is really kind of very Scottish and Irish kind of thing.
Yes.
That's why they've got the lilt and the way they talk. But that's almost like Trailer Park Boys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you have a TV show that you can recommend besides Letterkenny?
What TV show would I recommend? Let me just look at Wifey here.
Canadian?
No, anything.
Jan?
Oh, there's this great show. I don't know if you get it in Canada. It's called Jan.
In Canada.
Pardon me. I don't know if you get it in the United States, but it's called Jan. And it's actually Jan Arden doing a sitcom. And Kath and I watched it, and it was so good that we said, this is as good as any sitcom that's out there. I mean, really good and funny. I never knew she was. Well, I knew she was funny, but I didn't know that she was that funny.
Yeah, I need to look into that one. I got a press release from Universal Music Canada, even though I'm here in New York, about that. So that's the greatest recommendation I can get at the moment. And the closer, Mike, any last words for the kids?
The kids got to keep on rocking, keep on playing the music loud, and keep on coming to the concerts as soon as we kick COVID in the butt.
Well, definitely looking forward to seeing you in New York when things get back to normal again. But thank you for your time, and thanks for the many years of great music.
You're welcome, Darren.
Thanks. Take care.
All right.
Paltrocast.